Hi, I'm indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera, and I'm back this week with another interview for Fantasy Lore and More. We didn't have one last week because I was really sick with a really bad cold and had no voice and no will to do anything except lie there and try and feel better. But I am better, and so today, to get back on track, we've got Kristin Ward, and she's come to talk about her book, Dark is the Wood, to help me take my mind off the fact that I'm still coughing my brains out. So come on in, Kristin, and entertain us and tell us about
Hi,
Dark is the
hello.
Wood.
All right. So, Dark is the Wood is a fairy tale retelling. So, if we have lovers of fairy tales, but also lovers of dragons, then this may be a book for you. This is specifically a Red Riding Hood retelling. And instead of a wolf, my main character encounters dragon and dragonborn in a more medieval type fantasy world. So it's just steeped in dragon lore and also just the lore of the different people that she encounters. And we've got, a lot of the wonderful fantasy romance tropes, enemies to lovers, slow burn, morally gray. And yeah, a lot of fun to write. So it's just been one of my new adventures. And this is a book that has more of a romance theme than any of the other books that I've written.
Oh, wow. So tell us about, like, what's the story about? Who's our main character and what are they trying to do?
So the story is about Gillian, and Gillian comes from a small borderland town that borders the Shadowlands, and the Shadowlands is a forbidden area, forbidden for many reasons, and that is the realm of the Great Dragon. And the what's happened to the world is there's an insidious disease called the wasting, and it's just slowly kind of rotting away at the kingdom, and it tends to be most affecting the children. So her brother falls ill, and in a desperate attempt to try to find help to save him, through the story, she ends up going into the Shadowlands to seek help from a coven of witches that lives there.
Oh, wow. Let's go to the excerpt. So let's meet
Excellent.
Gillian. Let's hear her in
Yeah.
her own words.
Well, the prologue is actually the backstory. And I'm a big prologue person. I write prologues, I read prologues, and I find them as the way to really set up the world because in a fantasy world, of course, you have tons of world building. So in order to establish this world and to know what to expect when Gillian enters it, we have to know some of the history and in particular some of the lore that becomes really integral to the story. So that's the prologue. The crops died first. It was subtle in the beginning. A bad season or two was normal, nothing to worry over. Though it was a hardship for the inhabitants of Redguard. But when 2 seasons turned into 3 and 4, people started to talk. They sought out the religious, begging priests to bless the land, offering sacrifices of lamb and calf. Redguard's people turned to the gods. Ceremonies were held. By day, men tore clothes from their backs as they flailed and beseeched under the fiery heat of the sun god. Skin reddened, burned, and blistered under Iriel's mighty glare. By night, women linked hands and danced beneath the pale moon, offering tears, blood, and song to Caradwen, the goddess of nature and rebirth. Hope stirred. The land rebounded, presenting a bountiful yield, but it did not last. Frustrated and angry, the people cursed Caradwen, believing the goddess had forsaken them. Some turned their ire to Iriel, but most feared angering the fire god and remained steadfast in worship, though in their hearts doubt sowed. The wasting sank into the earth, slowly leaching the soil where crops grew. It spread like the vines of a creeper crawling across the land. It consumed the border towns first, then all of the kingdom of Mirren. And then, like the land, children began to wither. On the heels of the driest spring in a century, Rudgard's children started to sicken. By fall, nearly a quarter crossed the river. By the following spring, more showed the first ominous signs of an illness no medicine or prayer could cure. Fear set in, and accusation. Everyone knew the Shadowlands bordering the town was cursed. Dark creatures roamed the great dragon's realm, and only a fool would enter there. But they were desperate. Without Caradwyn, they were lost. Uriel and the dragon, both creatures of fire, became undisputed godlike symbols. Many believed the great dragon was the father of man, and that the serpent would hear their pleas and save his children. Offerings were made. First, there were animals and food, each gone shortly after being placed at the edge of the dark forest. But the plague continued, reaping crops and children. They offered more food, more animals, more prayer. When the young daughter of Sir Hubert Weston, the local lord, sickened, the wealthy knight offered a king's ransom and jewels he'd collected during his time across the Black Strait. Kneeling at the border of Dwyer Wood, he renounced the old gods and begged the great dragon to spare his daughter, placing a sack of precious stones at the base of a gnarled tree. It was gone the next day. His daughter, Marigold, took her last breath a sennight later. Caradwyn was dead to them. Uriel and the dragon did not hear their pleas. So they turned to another deity, Setanta, the god of war. Setantan priests convinced the people human sacrifice was required to appease the one true god and capture the attention of the dragon. Serfs were the first to be chained to posts just outside the border, but they were always whole come morning. Unbound and returned to their masters, they told stories of strange noises coming from the depths of the accursed woods. The priest decided someone must enter the Shadowlands and give their flesh and blood to the beasts that roam there. Those people, prodded at the point of a sword and forced to cross into the forest, disappeared into the trees. Their departure followed quickly by blood-curdling screams. But the wasting did not abate. The villagers stopped trying to enter Dwyer Wood, and Sir Weston made it a law not to cross into the Shadowlands. Time continued its relentless march. Crops struggled, children died, and no one crossed into the dragon's domain. Decades passed, and the people learned to accept their fate. For every child who crossed the river, 3 would live and grow to adulthood. For every blight-ridden field, others would yield enough to keep communities from falling into ruin. It was a world without gods, a world without hope, a world of death and disease and war. Across the kingdom, the once proud temples of Caradwyn were razed. What point was there in honoring the goddess of nature and rebirth when she did not listen as they suckled a dying child at their breast? But even the bravest men lacked the courage to defy Uriel as he hovered, callous and cruel in the heavens. Like the dragon, he was a god of fire and might, so they bowed to him, even while he made them suffer. Only Setanta seemed pleased. Only Setanta gifted his followers with plunder and slaves as men marched to war to fight and die for what was left of their world. Through it all, the Shadowlands remained, dark and unchanged. Nothing entered and nothing left that place. It became a thing whispered of beneath the glow of a candle. Stories of dragonborn, and witches grew into legends. But legends are insubstantial things made of words. In time, many believed that, like Caradwyn, the great dragon was dead. He hadn't flown through the skies for so long that he must have crossed the river like so many others. But he was not dead. He was trapped, biding his time until an opportunity arose, and his wait was nearly over. So that is the prologue for Dark as the Wood, to set up Gillian's world.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. What are the Shadowlands?
So the Shadowlands is basically where the great dragon's stronghold is, and it has just become, as you heard in the prologue, a forbidden place, and it's just a place that people fear because of the beasts that roam there. And throughout the story, you learn why it is the way that it is and really how it came into existence. And that is just it. Everything slowly unfolds as you go through the story. But as you go into chapter 1, where we meet Gillian, her brother is suffering from the wasting, and in desperation, she decides to cross into that forbidden realm.
And that forbidden realm, we mentioned dragons. Is that the only creature that lives in this realm?
No.
There's more than that.
So yeah, there's more than that. There are, I don't like to give away too many spoilers,
Yeah.
but there are other things that lurk in the Shadowlands. And as the story unfolds and you, the reader, along with Gillian, begin to learn more of the history of the great dragon and his offspring, and then the creatures that dwell within the Shadowlands and why the Shadowlands is a separate entity
Mhm.
within the world. That all comes as the story this slowly unfolds.
Okay, okay. And you said this is fantasy romance, and it's character driven.
Yes,
I think you also said it's slow burn. Did I hear that
yes,
at the beginning?
yes.
So
Enemies to lover, slow burn, morally gray.
wait, what? Who is his? What's his name?
Morally gray. So I have a
Oh,
very
Marley.
morally
Oh,
gray character. Yeah, some people hate him. I have a special place in my heart for him. That's Marius. But
and
yes, I
tell us
like those
about him.
kinds of books.
Tell us about him. This Marius, this morally gray person. He's somebody, I guess, in the
Um,
Shadowlands.
yes, he is the great dragon.
Ah,
So
okay,
Marius is a shapeshifter. So he is able to take on human form, and there's a reason that he did. But I
okay.
won't get into that because that would be a spoiler.
I guess it has something to do with Gillian, since he's
Yeah.
the love interest you've mentioned. We can
Well,
probably
I
make
didn't say
that.
he's the love interest, but he is morally gray.
Mm, okay. Um, is so what other than the Shadowlands? Like, is that the only like magical place there? Or, like everything else seems to be more like mundane. Did I get that right?
So basically, what we have, because of what you heard in the prologue,
Mm,
it has become a realm of men and then a realm that is the Shadowlands, and it is separate from the kingdom of Mirren, and there is a reason for that, which you find out in the book. So you do have this completely separate realm,
right.
and the reason that it became what it is has to do with the great dragon and also has to do with the history that was actually touched on in the prologue. It's just
Okay.
that Gillian doesn't find out, why and all the players in it until much later in the book.
Okay. All right. So in the world of men, is there any sort of magic? It sounds like all the magic is in the shadow world.
So that is the Shadowlands is the focus of where the magic is, but that doesn't mean that that's not where all the magic is. That's just where the story is focused.
Okay.
And the next book that I'm writing in the series is Enchanted Tales with Dragon Scales. So what I'm doing is I am writing retellings of different fairy tales. So the next one is Treacherous is the Tower, and that one actually takes place more in the kingdom of Mirren versus the Shadowlands. So we actually leave the Shadowlands for
Okay.
that.
And you said you're writing that now. So
Yes,
that's Dark as the Wood is book 1 and book 2 is coming, you think sometime this year, or should
yes,
listeners look for it? We're recording this, just so people know, on February 9th of 2024. So when we say this year, we mean 2024.
yes. So I have a tentative release date of December, but I plan on actually releasing it before then. And every book within the series Enchanted Tales of Dragon Scales is its own separate entity. But it does help if you read the other books because you're introduced to the characters that I'm writing books about in Dark as the Wood.
I
So
see.
Treacherous as the Tower features a character that is introduced in the first book.
Okay, okay. So this is sort of like a series of standalones where each book has a different set, like main character on a
Yes,
different quest. It's like so it all wraps up in each book. But there are
yes,
some threads that run through all of them to connect them into the series.
yes. So I am writing Draven's story, which this is Draven from Dark as the Wood.
So,
So
for
he,
anybody listening, she's holding up it's a very handsome fella. It's sort of like an illustrated feel,
yep. So he is dragonborn. He is a half-breed son of the great dragon,
and
and
he's for book 2.
he's featured in book 2. This is Roman. He is also a half-breed son of the great dragon.
Another illustration
So,
of a fellow who
yep,
looks dark and mysterious.
yeah. And I don't have. I mean, I've ordered character art of Marius, but all I have is a little sticker for now. And Marius is a half breed. No, I'm not a
Oh,
half
that's
breed. He is
cool.
a shape shifting dragon.
If you're just
So,
listening to this, if you pop onto the YouTube version, you can see you can see half a human face and half a dragon. It's really cool illustration.
thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, every book is going to feature somebody that was introduced in Dark is the Wood, which is why it's beneficial if you read the first one. But they are standalone.
How many books do you have planned for this? There are a lot of fairy tales.
Yeah. At the moment, I have 4 planned, but who knows? I may end up writing more than that, and it's 4 because it's 4 characters that I'm interested in writing a story about from the first book.
Okay, that's really cool. So so the first one is sort of like you said, like I think Beauty and the Beast and Red Riding Hood with dragons. So and 2, the tower that brings to mind what's her name? With the long hair. I can't.
Rapunzel.
That's it.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
yeah. So that's more
Yep.
Rapunzel for 2.
Yes.
Since you did 2 in the first one, Beauty and the Beast and Red Riding Hood, is the second one Rapunzel and something else or just Rapunzel?
So for the first one, it is more of a Red Riding Hood retelling, but what readers have said, which is why I included in the description, is it has Beauty and the Beast vibes. And
I
there are
see.
certain scenes in it where the readers are feeling a Beauty and the Beast vibe.
Mhm.
Um, so I understand why they're saying that, and my ARC readers said it, and then different readers have just commented on it. That wasn't necessarily the intent when I set out writing it. It was originally just a Red Riding Hood retelling with dragons, but I do have elements that are definitely reflective of Beauty and the Beast, but I also have planned in my head a true Beauty and the Beast retelling.
Okay,
So that's a different character.
I see. So we've got Red Red Riding Hood, Beauty and the Beast, Rapunzel. What's the 4th one?
I haven't decided yet.
Oh, okay.
I just
So you have
have
the
some very
character,
early.
but not
Yeah,
the fairy tale picked out yet.
yes, yes. And actually, Treacherous is the Tower. In my head was originally going to be a Cinderella retelling, but then when I started writing it, it became Rapunzel.
Mm.
And I'm a pantser when I write. I
Oh,
don't.
me too.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily. I mean, I become hybrid when it comes to a series because you have to be. You have to have plot points and have to have, this common thread throughout the series. So I did have to plan out more, like with my Celtic series, definitely had to plan out more. But I
Yeah.
still write by the seat of my pants.
It's fun doing that.
Yeah.
So what are so can we talk about some of those common threads that go through it, or is that too spoilery?
Um, I can talk about some tropes.
Okay.
Like found family is one that is becomes something that is definitely a big part of the story.
Mhm.
So, Gillian, as she's entering the forest, she is there to save her brother, but she also is going through self-discovery and really deciding, um, how she wants to integrate herself into this world that she never expected to experience. And with the who she encounters in this world, they help to shape her and also reveal more of who she is. So it is, along with being this Red Riding Hood retelling, a true journey of self-discovery.
Okay. And then her beau, is he on some a journey as well? Does he go
He,
through
yeah,
some
he,
changes?
yeah, he has his own arc, and the dragon, the great dragon, and his half-breed sons are all very seductive. They have, like the typical pheromonal persuasion type of power, and it works on the very weak-minded. But Gillian is not weak-minded, so she really bucks their control,
Hmm.
and it wears them down a little bit. She's a strong character, and she's a fighter, but not a fighter in the sense of swords and fists. She's a fighter because she has this internal strength, and she
Okay.
knows what she wants, and she has a task, and she's going to see it through, regardless of the hurdles that are thrown at her. And that's one of the things that I just really love about her character is that she doesn't give up, and while she may capitulate in the moment, she never surrenders.
Mm. No, that's a good trait, especially since she's got to go into this Shadowland and doesn't, has no idea what she's going to find. This wasting. Um, so I'm guessing she's going to find something about this.
Yeah.
Is the wasting dealt with in the other books, or is that only something that she's dealing with in this first book?
Keep in mind that the wasting has ravaged the kingdom
Mm-hmm.
for just so long, and there are after effects of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that has had an impact not only on the humans that are in the kingdom of Mirren, but also within the Shadowlands, because it's basically what you're dealing with is this story of the gods and goddesses. And that is introduced in the beginning of the book. And that prologue is you're hearing about Caradwyn and Iriel. And they become throughout the story key figures because everything is tied together.
Mm-hmm.
And the wasting itself is it's impacting her in a very personal way, of course, because it's her brother.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows what to expect because she's seen other people in the village of Rudgard fall ill to it, and she knows that there is no escape once the signs come. That's it. That it's this insidious disease. Sorry,
Okay.
I don't know
So
what
now
this
this
computer's
this
doing.
goddess, so like she used to listen to people's prayers and
Sorry
then she
about that.
stopped. Why did she stop? So
So
that's
the wasting is something that when she sees the signs of it and she sees her parents' reactions and she hears what it is that her mother wants to do in order to try to save her son, she ends up stepping in and being the one who is going to really fight for the life of her brother.
mm,
And she's quite a bit older than him. He was really a gift to her parents late in life, and so she's kind of a mother figure to him as well, and it's just a really strong bond, which is why she has this drive to risk it all, and enter a realm where death could be imminent, but sometimes it's just worth the risk, and her brother is worth the risk.
mm, okay. And it sounds like she has a good strong bond with her family, which is cool. Like a lot of fantasy stories, the main character is an orphan, and she's definitely not. Which I like that. I like that you're bucking that trend, and that she actually does have a family that she is willing to fight for. I think that's pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
so going back to that goddess that they're stopped praying to because they thought she's not listening because she's not granting their prayers and ending this wasting. Like why did she not answering?
That you would have to read the book to find out.
Okay. So that's in the book. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Does Jillian have any magic of her own, or is she just human with like us and with no magic, but we wish we had some?
Well, she she is just someone who's coming from this village and, coming from a very ordinary life. Her parents are really scraping by because keep in mind, the wasting is not only impacting children, it's also
Mm,
impacting the land. So when you have periods of drought and blight, it's just making it hard for people like her to survive. But she's strong, and she's got a lot of grit, and she does what she can to try to learn, and she likes to read, and but she can't afford books, so they're on loan to her, and she learns about different medicines to try to find plants that are going to help her brother. um, but you're talking about a disease that doesn't have a known cure for the people in the kingdom. So, she does have a lot of inner strength and potential, and that's all I'll say about that.
okay. Nope, that's more than fair. Is there anything else you want to say about Dark as the Wood, or I forgot the name of the other one? It had a cool title. Treacherous is the
Treacherous is the
Tower.
tower.
Oh,
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah, treacherous is the tower. Um, this is, as I mentioned earlier, really my first venture into having a more romance theme. The other books that I've written, and I kind of genre hop, but the other books have romantic elements in them. And this is the first time that I'm really exploring that idea of a love interest and that romantic entanglement
Mhm.
within a very complicated story. And it's been a lot of fun to write and kind of weave in those threads and creating this whole tapestry of a world and these lives all interconnected. But I am going to be continuing that with Treacherous is the Tower. In fact, the whole series of Enchanted Tales with Dragon Scales is all going to be fantasy romance based. So even though the fairy tales themselves that they may be loosely based on or a retelling of may not have any romantic themes, I'm bringing them into the retelling as romantic themes.
No, that's cool. And they're all gonna have dragons.
Yep, yep. So this world, Marius, the great dragon, is a central character, not only in the Shadowlands, but also throughout the entire world. So there is a connection between the great dragon and humankind in this fantasy world.
Oh, that's very cool. Is this fantasy world connected to any I know you've written other books, or is this totally separate?
This is totally separate. Um, some people may see some kind of similar themes to my Celtic series in that we're dealing with nature in a forest, and I like to use elemental magic. So there is elemental magic. We do have a coven of witches that lives in the Shadowlands, and there are some parallels to the kind of the forest elements and things like that. And that's really just me as a writer and just infusing this world with things that I enjoy. So I'm sure that people are seeing some similarities in the some of the descriptors and fantasy elements of a forest life and the magic that could live within a forest. But it manifests very differently in this. The Shadowlands is what it says. It's very dark, and the creatures that live there are very dark, and there's a reason that they are.
Okay, okay. We'll have to read the book to find out what that reason is.
Yeah.
Is there any cool features or anything that you can talk about that aren't a spoiler? Any neat things that are in here,
Um, that aren't a spoiler. That's tough. Uh,
or that you're willing to give away?
yeah. um, I'll just say that you do have this whole idea of the great dragon being trapped within the Shadowlands, and indeed he is. And in the prologue, it says that he has been waiting, he's been biding his time, and that his wait is nearly over. his wait is nearly over because Gillian is about to cross into the Shadowlands. So that is my little teaser.
Okay. That's interesting. And we'll find out what he's waiting for in the book.
Yes.
So, all right. And second book, look for maybe at the end of the year, the end of 2024, early
Yes, I
2025.
am hoping, yeah, I'm hoping earlier in the fall that I'll have it released. If you are interested in ARC reading, I will be selecting an ARC team. I already have a core ARC team that is almost, at this point, kind of alpha reading parts of it. But I will be looking for ARC readers. So if you enjoy fantasy romance, it is young adult, so it is fade to black, but it's spicy for young adult. It's just not graphic or anything. But it's just got, some of those young adult level spicy scenes.
Okay. And for anyone, ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy. And what an ARC is when an author is, they finish writing the book and it's gotten edited. They'll look for readers who will read the book before it comes out and give feedback and or just write a review when it comes out. And that's what ARC reading is. You're reading an advanced copy of the book before it's out.
Yeah.
So
And it's a lot of fun. I've got a Discord channel where I've got different threads and readers talk about books. They could talk about all the books, but there is, a special thread for ARC readers so that they can openly discuss it. And it helps me. It helps an author because an ARC copy isn't the final copy. So if there's anything that is glaring that an ARC reader discovers, it's just a huge help for an author to just quickly fine tune it before release and really get feedback on the characters and the plot, and that helps with sharing the whole story with everybody. So being an ARC member or even a beta reader, if you want an even earlier copy, is such a great part of the process. And I love my ARC team. I actually met my core ARC team through this particular book, and they have then subsequently read everything else. They're about to read Rise of Gaia right now, but it's just a lot of fun to hear that kind of feedback and have that kind of relationship. And they are passionate about the characters in this story. They are so excited for Draven's story, for Treacherous as the Tower, because they fell in love with him in Dark as the Wood. And then I did tell them that I am writing a story that is based on Marius, and I'm writing a story that is based on another character named Ansel, from Dark as the Wood, and they're equally excited. So it's great to have this enthusiasm for these upcoming works that are all going to be, embedded in this fantasy world, and it's all really driven by the great dragon and his history and his relationship with all elements of this fantasy world.
that's really cool. And for anyone who doesn't know, like beta reading is you're reading the book, before it's edited. So you could be reading it while the author is writing it, or you might be reading it after they finished while it's being edited. And what beta reading is that you're looking at the content. You're not looking for any like typos and things. You're more letting the author know, like, did you not? Is just something confusing? Like I just had the book that I just finished like a week ago beta read, and my beta called me up and she's like, I did not understand some of this, and we talked it through and I understood where the story went kind of off the rails and why she was having trouble understanding it. And I went back and I revised it and sent another version, and she called me today and was like, this is perfect, I get it now, this is the one you need to be putting on retailers. So just so that, like, I'm not trying to hijack the interview. I just wanted to explain like what beta reading is. And Kristin also mentioned alpha reading, and alpha reading is that is always like you're reading it as someone is writing it. So if you're on like an early access for like somebody's subscription, like I have a Patreon and I have a wonderful patron named Glenda who reads the books as I write them. I write the chapter, I post the chapter, and if she doesn't give feedback, but if she wanted to, that would be alpha reading. So because that's when you're reading it like as someone is writing it. So it's all these levels, and they all like help authors get a better story out, because like what's clear in our head doesn't always make it to the typed on screen. We don't always realize, was when we read it, we know what we meant, and
Exactly.
and we need help. We need somebody to be like, how did she get from 2 miles away to California? Like sometimes it happens. Or like, wait a minute, like his hair was purple. Like, why is it now fuchsia? Like sometimes we get mixed up. We forget that somebody was in California, and then we suddenly have them in Tennessee doing something. Like I'm not even making this up. Like sometimes, like when we're writing, we're like just in it, and we totally lose track of where people are, what they were doing, and logic goes out the window, and all that gets fixed in editing. So when you buy the book, hopefully that's not in there, but that's how that stuff gets caught. We
Yes.
depend on wonderful readers who help us to find our mistakes, or
Oh,
where we're not
absolutely.
clear, or where we didn't
Yes.
describe something.
Yeah. Or that character we left behind in chapter 4, they were never mentioned
Yes.
again.
Or like they, which happened with one of my books a couple years ago. Like, wait, this side character who's been every single book, why are they not in this one? And I'm like, oh my god, I totally didn't even realize that they have no part in this, and I couldn't figure out how to put them in. So we discussed it, and I decided we would make a big thing in the next book, and he could explain in there why he wasn't in the other one. And
There you go.
so yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that, but like I didn't have like someone like reading it as I was writing it, and because someone would have said, and I would have written him in. It was like at the end, and it was like too late at that point because it was on
Yep.
like pre-order, and I was like, I'd have to majorly rewrite the story to like fit this person in. And I'm like, I just can't do that at this
Oh my
point.
God.
So like
Well,
that,
there,
just to give
I,
just to
I've,
give
had, I've
listeners
had
a
that.
perspective, beta readers, alpha readers, arc readers, they're all very important. They all do different things, but they're super important for us. And I could probably use a whole lot more of these as any author could.
Yes.
So
Yeah, no, they're essential. We have to have that perspective because, as you said, we're so close to the story that we just don't see it anymore. It's like
yeah.
I have ninja typos. My ninja typos get into everything. I never find them because they're ninjas. But my arc readers might, or my beta readers might. And, it's if we don't have that perspective, then we can't see where maybe we're focusing on the wrong character for some of the books. And my developmental editor is really good at that. I would never publish anything without him. He knows my voice, knows the story I'm trying to tell, and he just helps me write a better story through his suggestions with developmental edits. But my arc readers and my beta readers are just as essential. And this is the first time I've had alpha readers. And they're just super excited. They're just kind of giddy about it because they've never done it before.
Hmm.
And they are able to give me that immediate feedback as I'm writing, which has been really exciting. So they are really more of an integral part of the process. And it's really neat to be able to basically be doing it with them live because it's as I go along, they're reading it.
That's really neat. That's definitely like, I mean, I have somebody who's reading it, but they're not giving me feedback. Which if you're listening, it's totally okay. You are on so you are paying for a subscription to read these. You don't need if you want to. I'm open to hearing it,
Yeah,
but it's definitely not required. Yeah.
yeah. So it's neat. It's great to be able to share it.
Hmm.
And yeah, know that you're going in the right direction.
Oh yeah, because we're following the characters, and the characters don't
Yep.
always listen to outlines. They don't care about outlines. They don't
No,
care that we promised that we were going to do X in the book. If they want to do Y instead, there's no changing their minds.
no, no.
It just
Someone
doesn't.
on a post they were saying, I just write up incident reports for what my
Yeah,
characters are doing.
sometimes I feel like that.
Yeah, yeah. They just do stupid stuff sometimes. You're like, what?
Yeah, and then they get in a lot of trouble, and they're like, "All right, I don't know what to do now. Author, save
Yeah,
me." then you're
Yep.
like, oh God, if you don't know how to get out of this, then how am I supposed to figure it out? You actually live in this world.
That's right. I might want to live there with you, but
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking in from the outside, I'll be
yeah,
fine if you don't survive. Your
right.
survival does not impact me.
Or you torture them because that's what my readers are constantly telling me is that I torture my characters. My arc team is very worked up to what I'm going to do with Draven, and treacherous is the tower, and they want me to be nice to him. But as an author, we put our characters through a lot.
I mean, so characters often bring the trouble on themselves. I mean,
But,
don't touch that magic crystal. Don't go into that dark cave. I mean, some of this stuff is like, you know, if you didn't do that, these other things wouldn't have happened, but you chose to
right.
open Pandora's box. I'm not responsible for what comes
Yeah.
out,
You wanted to
you
touch the
know?
shiny thing.
I mean, that
Yeah.
that's it. So there's a certain amount of like where we are actually doing things, but there's a lot of times it is the character who is deciding to, you know, go into that dark wood
Yep. That's
alone,
right. That's right.
unarmed, with no map,
Yep.
no clue, not knowing what is ahead. And, we know what's in there, but they decided to walk in there. So, what happens is not on us.
That's right. They should have known better.
Yeah, because I mean, it's there's the main character, but there's other characters in the world and they have their own agency.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they're if they're with and when they're in conflict, which is all the time, things happen. And it's not us making it. Like we create the characters, we put them in their places, they make decisions that force them to interact and stuff happens.
Yes. Yes, it does. And that's
And
one of the reasons why I love like the morally gray is I, characters, you have this well-rounded character and sometimes there are these dualities where they might be doing things that are not nice things. But it doesn't necessarily make them an evil character. Or maybe you have an evil character and you just kind of feel like they just embody all evil, but then you realize the driver behind it and that there's more to them than this just surface level behavior. And that's, a lot of us love the morally gray villain. And I think that it's that duality of our nature that's just coming out, and it's coming out just, it's much stronger in a story, in a fantasy story, than in real life, but we all have that duality, and I feel like these characters really embody it. And some of us just have kind of an attachment to that kind of villain or that kind of hero.
I mean, I
Maybe
I
not
think a
all
moral
hero.
I think morally gray people can be heroes, but like it's not a decision they're motivated by what benefits them, and if doing the heroic thing benefits them, they're going to do it. Like I
Yeah.
have a morally gray character in a book that I am a trilogy that I am writing, and the only time that he does something that's helpful to other characters is like when it benefits him. They
Yep.
know this, so they're not like depending on him or anything. But he has his very clear goal, and when it's in alignment with them, it helps them. When it's
Right.
not in alignment, he disappears because he's off on his own quest, looking for his own thing. Um, but like with somebody who's motivated by their own self, what benefits them, it like when it all hits the fan and like if the world is going to end because some character tries to destroy time or something, like then they become a hero because there's
Yeah,
no benefit in them for
that's
this
right.
for the world ending or whatever the thing is. um and so I think that's what like readers like, is that because I think we are all a little bit self-motivated, like
Oh,
no one
absolutely.
is 100% altruistic all of the time. Like that's unreasonable and unrealistic. Everybody at some point has to do that calculus, like do I benefit from this, because there's the risk and there's the reward, and the risk is high, and and the reward could also be high, but if you're not going to benefit from it, like some people might not decide to do it.
Yep. No, absolutely. That is our nature as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
Yep.
that's
So
why
of course it's
people,
going to be in our characters.
yeah, no, and I think that's why people like morally great characters, because they see
Hmm.
some of themselves in there, because
Yep.
like someone who makes the right decision all the time is nobody nobody is that person.
No.
The person is Jesus, Buddha, like, the examples that we hold up and that we all try to be like, but nobody is that.
Yep. Yep. No, and it's fun to be able to explore characters that embody that duality,
Yeah.
and then to make it more extreme in some cases, where there are some things that we would not do in our world that they'll do in theirs as part of that morally gray aspect of their character.
Yeah. It's kind of fun when they're a main character and you're like trying to get them to the end of the book. It's the carrot and the
Yeah.
stick. You have to keep finding something that they want and putting that in front of them to get them to the end of the book, to the thing that you want. Because
Yep.
they're not motivated by, like, you know, saving the world is an abstract concept and that doesn't directly benefit them. you
Yep.
know, Not unless they
Yep.
can see it and the problem is dead ahead in front of them and it is directly going to screw up their life and they don't do
Yep.
something about it.
Yep. No, it's got to
So
be worth it.
yeah, so it's definitely fun plotting a book with a character like that who is not going to save the world unless it's ending right in front of them and they are going to die imminently
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
don't do something. Um, so that's definitely been a lot of fun and also a little exhausting.
Yeah. Of course. Characters are exhausting.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say about Dark as a Wood or Treacherous as a Tower before we
No,
end?
I don't think so. As I said, I know I'm only giving little tidbits, but it's
Yeah.
because there's so much that is unraveled as the story goes on. And it's just important as a reader that you're with Gillian as she's learning it along with you.
No, and that's important. Like discovering the world is like that's the fun part about reading fantasy is that it's not our world. You are
Yeah.
discovering it layer by layer with the character and making mistakes with the character
Yes.
and
Yes.
getting things right as the character, and that is and learning with them. And I think
Yes.
that's like one of the big for me that's a big draw of reading fantasy books is that there's that
Oh, absolutely. And you
and the
come up with your
wonder.
little theories, and then they're
Hmm.
then they're proven true or they're proven false. And it's nice when you have the plot twists. And I love the unexpected. And that's also what I try to give the reader is, we don't want to have this path and all we're doing is paving it as we go along. We want the path to have twists and turns that they didn't expect.
Right, right. I think it's also fun to also have some turns be expected, especially like if you have the twist and then the next one it isn't the twist or something,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that can be fun too. Because then you're anticipating it's going to be something different, but secretly hoping it will be this thing, and it turns out it
yeah,
is this thing, and you're like, oh, good, like
yeah.
because then it's a bit of a surprise that it. I don't know. I don't know
It
if I'm
didn't go
describing
that
it
way. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that could be fun too. Um, and sometimes it's fun to give people the scenes that they're hoping for.
Yes. Yes.
Even if it is
Absolutely.
a little bit predictable, like we all crave a little bit of predictability. That's why we read certain tropes over and over
Yep.
and over again because we know what we're going to get. Um,
Yep.
so I think there's a balance between like twists and surprises and stuff that you are expecting to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Because one gives you the warm fuzzies, and one of them you're like, "Oh, did that just happen?
Yep.
Oh my god!" And both have a place in
Right.
fantasy.
Yeah. You want to be in tears one time and then just feeling all happy in another. And yeah, you want all the feels, all the
Yeah,
feels.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Kristen, for coming on here. This has been another episode of Fantasy Learn More. Today we're talking with Kristin Ward about Darkest the Wood. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, all the things so that you get notified when the next podcast drops. And we'll be back tomorrow with another fantasy book and another fantasy author. So I hope you'll tune in. Thank you so much. Have a great day or great night wherever you are.